Could be worse, could certainly be better though.
Hey y'all, Theo here. So for this video, we're gonna talk about Seminole Canyon and about our trip to Big Bend. And what I noticed when I was recording the Seminole Canyon section is that my voiceover sounded really calm and quiet. And I was a little confused by that. I was listening to it and I was like, man, maybe I should re-record it with a little bit more energy. But I thought about it a lot, and I think the reason that this sounded so quiet is because I was subconsciously trying to be respectful of the place. Seminole Canyon is something really special, and then I decided not to re-record it. I decided to leave it as is because I figured my first guttural reaction to the footage I was seeing was the truest. With that, let's get to this part. Let's talk about Seminole Canyon, and then we're gonna go into Big Bend, which is where, let's just say, the misadventures really happen in this video. So we'll see you there.
After exploring Del Rio, we woke up at the Amistad Reservoir and were greeted by beautiful morning light. From there, we headed over to Seminole Canyon State Park. The canyon is basically an oasis in the middle of the Chihuahan Desert. As a result, it is home to many species of plants and animals that you may not find elsewhere in the desert, and it's also a very important archaeological site. To protect the canyon and the archaeological sites in it, you can only access it in a guided tour. The tour starts at the top of the canyon, where you talk about all the different plants in the desert and the ways in which they were useful to the people that lived here thousands of years ago. From there, you descend to the bottom of the canyon and towards the main archaeological sites. As you walk along the bottom, you start seeing signs of the canyon's most valuable resource: water. The stream running along the bottom of the canyon is a dead giveaway, but it actually goes much beyond that. Rocks are left behind by ancient floods in the little divots on the rock, and the banks have clearly been carved out by moving water. The rock itself stores some moisture, and as the sun heats it up, the water starts seeping out, and it looks like the rock is sweating. Also, the walls of the canyon create some shade, which makes the place a lot cooler than outside. All of this combined makes the canyon a very pleasant place to be in. And if there's a pleasant place, sooner or later people will show up. And show up they did, thousands and thousands of years ago, and they left their mark on the rock. It's honestly hard to describe what it feels like to see these paintings. You find yourself wondering, what do these people think? What do they see? How do they feel about them? And there's no answer to be found. All we know is that they saw something with their mind's eye, and they represented it on the rock. When you realize that these have been around for 10,000 years, you start to wonder about the quality of the paint. The paint is a mix of minerals found around the area, as well as bone marrow. Bone marrow is highly nutritious, so the fact that these people are using it for art indicates how much that art meant to them. Much later in the 1800s, people left their mark too. Don't be like them, and don't leave your mark here. Continuing on our tour, we walk further into the canyon to another archaeological site. This site contains more incredible rock art, as well as other signs of human occupation. There are rests of food and plant matter, as well as rocks used for milling grains. This was one of my favorite parts of the tour. This is a rock that's been used to process deer since ancient times. With use, it's developed this glossy finish, which is actually fat from the animals that have been processed there. In addition, you can see these marks that indicate that knives were sharpened here. The last part of the tour is probably the most meaningful. You see these paintings that are full of color and meaning to the people who made them. For example, you can see the head that's made to look like a deer. Deer were essentially sacred animals to the folks who lived in Seminole Canyon because it provided so much food and other resources to them. The reverence to deer lives on today in nearby Mexico in the deer dance. Now, you may think that 10,000 years is a lot of time, but how about 100 million years? This area used to be a sea back in the early Cretaceous period, and the evidence of that is in the fossils that literally stick out of the rock. Honestly, seeing them alone would have been worth the trip. After seeing the fossils, it was time to head back up and out of the canyon. What a beautiful place this is, but it was time to leave and head on to Big Bend. We drove through the Chihuahan Desert for a few more hours, through dry riverbeds and along mountains, and we approached Big Bend slowly and surely. It's a really interesting place, even though it's really hot this time of year. As we drove into the park, we were completely mesmerized by the landscape. It went from dry desert to mountains, and there was so much contrast and so much beauty everywhere we looked. I honestly can't recommend Big Bend enough. What an incredible place. And we were also so lucky that this was a particularly wet season, so there was green everywhere. We were in awe and so happy, and nothing could bring us down. Except for a broken truck, that is. Because of the steep grades approaching Chisa's Basin, the truck overheated and melted the water pump. So we were stuck at Big Bend with no cell phone service and no way to contact anyone to help us out. Luckily, with time a few folks stopped by and they helped us, which was just amazing. We are so thankful that they showed up. Granted, this was a beautiful place to be broken down in, but it was still a stressful situation, and we were waiting well into the night until we were finally picked up by a tow truck. So we're broken down at Big Bend National Park right now. The truck, we're pretty sure we blew a radiator hose and the truck overheated, we pulled over, and then there was
pouring out.
Yep, and then we just had steam everywhere. So now we're on the side of the road. We talked to a couple of folks that stopped to help us out. Shout out to Tim and Greg.
And Becky for calling the dispatcher.
Oh yes, and Becky for calling. So three people.
And then
Tyler, right? Yeah, Tyler, the park ranger, who stopped to help us out. So
rock stars.
Yeah, now do you know who's not a rock star? Good Sam, because they're taking forever to get us a tow truck.
It's been almost 2 hours. They haven't even confirmed the service provider who's gonna do
Yeah,
the tow.
we don't even know if someone is coming.
We've called them 3 times now.
Luckily, the park rangers were super awesome. They let us stay just on the side of the road here. So we're camping basically just off the side of the road at Big Bend, and it's kind of a beautiful place. So, I mean, could be worse, could certainly be better though. So now it's just the waiting game for us. Alright, y'all, we'll end it here. Check back in next week for our next episode.